Okay, in this video we're going to talk about submixes and sends and returns. These all use what is sort of generically called buses. A bus being a channel that just collects signal from other channels. In Studio One, they use a variety of names. If we come over here to the input-output and click the down, we can add a bus channel, an effects channel. We're not going to talk about VCA channels right now. And then aux channel here is actually a channel for like an external instrument, which is a little confusing because in Pro Tools, this type of channel is called an aux or an auxiliary input across all of these things. So I'm just going to use the terminology for Studio One right now. So the two we're going to talk about in this video are bus channel and FX channel. They are kind of functionally the same, but don't tell Studio One because they charge you extra for one. Not really. But the free version only has FX channels, but you can do this stuff with either of these channel types. So let's add an effects channel. It puts it down here at the end. And you see it has no input selected and it has main as the output. So I can come here to the lead vocal track, and now I can, if I click to add a send, I can send something to FX1. Let's say we're just going to make this a reverb. So I will put a reverb tool on here, and I'm just going to pick some large hall. That's fine. Sound there. So if I play the lead vocal here, let's oops, that's not what I meant to do. Let's make a little loop. When I select something, it makes a loop, and I can come down here and make the loop repeat, so it'll just repeat that over and over. If I start inside the loop, it will. Here we go.
I think she's wicked, but she know. I think she's wicked, but she know. I think she's wicked, but she know. I think she's wicked, but
lots of reverb. And if I, so this controls the reverb. So we've got the dry sound here. We're sending some sound to the effects. And what's running on the effects is reverb. I can even change the name of this channel to reverb. And you see it changes here as well. Now, the other thing that I can do is
she know. I think she's wicked, but she know.
I can turn down the amount of the send. So here I control how much of it goes to the effects return. And here I control how much of the effects return goes to the main out.
I think she's wicked, but she know. I think she...
Now, you might ask, well, why do I want to do it like this? Why don't I just put a reverb on the channel? Well, let's say we want to have the same reverb on the background vocals. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Same reverb on the background vocals. Then we can select all of these, send to the reverb, send them each to the reverb. So now
she's wicked, but she know. I think she's wicked, but she know. I think she's wicked, but she know.
For the whole thing. So then, this serves a couple of purposes. We can make the singers sound like they're in a single space because we're using one reverb on them, which helps us think it's a single space. And we'll talk about that a lot more when we get to reverbs. But the other thing is it saves some processing power. So now instead of running 3 versions of this plugin, I'm running one version of the plugin and sending 3 things to it. So this is what I'm going to call an effects return. And we use it to send and return. Now, the other thing that we might use a bus channel for would be a submix. And a good example of a submix might be the drums. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bus channel here. And you'll note it added it right after whatever channel I had selected. If you look in these settings, it by default might have keep effects and bus channels to the right. You can uncheck those, which then lets you move things around. So if I wanted to put this in a different place, I can just click and drag it and move it around. But usually if it's a drum submix, we will put it at the end of the drum. So here, I can rename this drum submix. And what I can now do is the drum submix shows up as a place that I can route this track. So I'm not using the sends, because what I did over here for the reverb return, I want two things. I want to send some here, so I get a version with reverb, but I also get a dry version here. What I'm doing with the drums is I'm not trying to have both an affected version and a dry version. I want to take all of the drums and route them through this drum submix, right? So let me select all of the drums, hold down Shift and click those, and change this to drum submix. Now what will happen is when I play the drums, I can control the volume of all of the drums together here. Also, just a note, when you make a bus channel, it's usually you want to solo safe the channel, meaning, so if I hold Command and Shift, sorry, and hit solo, it'll turn green like that. That means if I solo other things, that this will not mute. So what I can do is solo all of the drums. Let's turn off our loop so we can hear the whole thing. I'm hearing some guitar. There must just be bleed in there. But right, so I can now control all of the drum level with this one fader. So if I get the thing set up and have the drums mixed, you know, sort of really how I want the drums to sound, but then I want the whole thing to be louder or softer, I can do this here. I can also run, say, like a single compressor on the whole drum set. And again, so I can affect the whole thing as one thing, but I can then also control the level. So the language I'm going to use, I'm going to call this a submix, although you'll often hear people say like, oh, that's the drum bus. And sometimes people will call this the reverb bus. To be a little clearer, I'm going to use the term submix here. So when we take the output for a channel and send it to a bus channel, we're submixing the drums. So we have a mix of the drums, and then this submix of the drums goes to our main output. In this case, I'm going to use the term effects return. So we have a reverb effects return, so we have sent things to the reverb return, right? So a return always has to have a send to go to it. So send, return, and then the drum submix here is a bus channel that we are routing our drums to this bus channel. So that's the two things I want to get out of this video, a submix and an effects return.